name is Dr. Jon Stewart. I'm a biophysicist, and I've been studying science actually since the age of 10 or 11, when I spontaneously had this passion that was alien in my family, so I don't know where it came from. I was born with it. I think it may have come from some other place. But since that time, I've always had a hunger to learn about myself and others and the universe in which we live. So I studied medical sciences, and then I studied physics, biophysics, electronics. So I'm a professional electronic engineer as well as a biophysicist. So I do a lot of design work in devising technologies for healing and for taking our abilities to greater levels. And I've become interested in the last few decades in energy fields that affect us, that are unseen, that are down at the quantum level and even beyond that. So I want to talk about those levels, those fields, and I want particularly to remind you from last time, the last talk we had, about this encyclopedic book. So what we've decided to do is to use this book as the basis for a course. Just like I did previously 15 years ago, using Gerber's book, Vibrational Medicine, which was an encyclopedic book, the basis of my course, Vibrational Medicine. But I'd like to introduce my colleague, Gadi Foltys here, who is a great resource, and he too is a student of this book. In fact, it was through him I discovered this book. So Gadi, say hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, and thank you, and welcome to the show.
Yeah. So others in the audience are also students of higher consciousness in varying aspects of it, from the personal experiential aspect to the scientific. I'm more scientific because I'm interested in atoms, molecules, DNA, and subquantum particles. So we'll get into all of that. But to make it easier for you, we have decided to have a regular course every 2 weeks. And what we decided to do is use this book, which seems to be the best available out of many others. I'll give you examples of some others that I find great. The Akashic Records book. Most of these books are now written by physicists, quantum physicists, and not by psychologists, because this is taking us into the realm of subquantum physics. So this book is Science and the Akashic Fields by Erwin Laszlo, a great author who's written many books. So I'd recommend all of his books to you. Another book is The Self-Aware Universe, How Consciousness Creates the Material World by Goswami. This is another book telling us how our consciousness creates our reality and how reality feeds back in a loop. We are part of a continual loop where we feed these higher dimensions and they in turn feed us. So we have an immense responsibility as we feed these higher dimensions. We're part of that circuit. We're part of that circuit. So we have immense responsibility in how we think, what we do, and all of our actions. Another very important book, which I mentioned last time when I was last interviewed by Hugh Riley here and this group, is the book by Lynne Mctaggart, whom I was introduced to about 15 years ago. I did a workshop with her when she was in Toronto. She had a book then, The Field, which was the science behind higher consciousness. And then subsequently she has published this book, The Intention Experiment. So both books together tell us about all of the research that has been done to verify the existence of these higher dimensional fields that influence us in unseen ways, just like radio waves affect us, but we can't pick them up unless we have a receiver. But we are, in fact, the receiver, unknowingly, of a lot of these energies. So it's important that we learn about them, and that's the purpose of this course, to help you and help all of us, and motivate me too, to do our homework. And my homework has been reading these books, and reading this one particularly. I read this one in bed at night. I sometimes wake up at 3 in the morning, and I spend 2 hours reading more of this book, particularly in preparation for this course that we're starting tonight. And we're going to be continuing every 2 weeks. So every session, I propose that we prepare one chapter of this book. So I ask you all to buy this book. It's $45 for 500 pages. So that's a pretty good deal. Get it at Amazon. I don't know if Chapters has it. Probably they do. It's The Field by David Wilcock.
Correct. The source field investigation.
The source field investigation. Okay. It's on. There might be a picture of it on Amazon.
I will go there.
Yeah. Gary is handling the computer, so he can put up on the screen any website or information that we want. So we're going to go over a little bit of this book, a global review of the entire book tonight. But we'll focus primarily next time on Chapter 1 about things like the Baxter Effect, where Dr. Baxter found that certain plants, philodendrons, for example, were able to pick up on his intention. So consciousness is about intention for the most part. And intention is based on love energy that pervades the universe, that dictates the order that matter manifests. And one of the great teachers of this, one of my teachers, is Rupert Sheldrake. And Gary is going to put up on the screen Rupert Sheldrake's website. Rupert Sheldrake is from England, and he came up with this idea that there are fields that pervade all of the universe that influence and dictate how atoms form together, how energy forms together, and how form shapes. And they're called the morphogenetic field. Morphic in Greek means shape or form. So genetic means these give rise to shape in the universe. So some shapes are allowed and prevalent. Other shapes we never see because the morphogenetic fields are not bringing them about. There is no template for some fields, or their time has not yet come. Maybe many creatures in evolution, their time has come and gone. There are other creatures in evolution, their time has not yet come. But that all information is still waiting there in the Akashic dimensions, the Akashic Field that Laszlo and many others talk about. The Akashic is a word that means the universe, the storage area, the repository of all information, of all time, and all possibilities. So that is pouring in, creating our reality. And we in turn, believe it or not, we feed back to feed that reality. So the question is the information already carved in stone, or is it changing and dynamic? And do we have influence over it? I believe we have influence over it. And I believe that's where our responsibility lies, in every thought, in every action, to be aware of our influence on the entire universe through these fields that we're going to talk about in great detail.
Dr. Stewart, could I just ask a question? It seems like, I mean, I know you're bringing a lot of stuff to bear here, but when you talk about do we have an influence or not, I'm just curious because you say you believe that we do, but is there any scientific proof that we actually do? Because that's an exciting concept if we do.
Yes, more and more now with these experiments, and this is the power of this great book written by David Wilcock. He has spent years developing this and 2 years writing the book. And he has an audio tape that Gary gave me.
It goes along with the book?
It goes along.
Hours.
It, in fact, is the book, because Gary downloaded it for me, and I've been listening to it on my iPhone when I drive around. I was listening to 2 hours of this book on MP3. So this is another easy way for you to read the book. Some people are more audiophilic. I'm an audiophilic, but so I like to hear information, and I can visualize it from what I hear. But many of you maybe prefer to read. Reading is difficult for many people, so hearing it is another more acceptable option.
But can I intercept you?
You please do.
I have
anytime,
something to add to the question here. Is some years ago, a whole bunch of people, I think 7,000 people, meditated in Washington D.C. One of the worst places in North America for the crime rate, and they sent positive energy. They dwelt in positive energy. And apparently the crime rate in that area has dropped significantly while these people are meditating and sometime after. So 7,000 people meditating together, sending love, permeating the area with love.
Now, thank you for bringing me back to that. Yes, in this book, I remember listening to the kangaroo, the giraffe effect. Why do giraffes have a long neck? Because they chose to. Somehow, through the Akashic dimensions, they fed back, and in ways we don't understand, it brought about an evolutionary change. And this book very eloquently it tells of hundreds of experiments of how DNA changes as a response to intention. Yes, Hugh? Yeah.
Well, I remember I was watching Jurassic Park, and where the little animals, the little lizards, were getting chased by the big T-Rex, right? And I was thinking, it was such a scary scene that I thought those little dinosaurs for eons wished that they could fly and get away from the T-Rex terror. Yeah. And one day they did, and they became birds.
They became birds because they intended, they could see a need, there was a need, and the universe provided that need, which it often does. And you sometimes see very abrupt quantum transitions in evolution that don't go through the Darwinian process. And Wilcox describes this very well, how the Darwin theory is very limited. It's not wrong, but it's very limited. It does not explain the whole story, how suddenly a new feature appears. Like, have you ever seen people with 6 fingers on their hands? It's not uncommon. Did they develop it by growing through generation after generation, by growing another finger? No, it suddenly appeared. So genes and DNA can change suddenly. We have very abrupt changes. So evolution often happens by these abrupt changes that are brought about. So why would someone have 6 fingers? Maybe there's a need for that.
John, you once mentioned that the universe is digital. Does this have anything to do with this? Versus analog?
Yeah, I think it's part of the digital nature of reality. Is nature analog or digital? See, at a grosser level, everything is analog and smooth. It looks like it's smooth, but when you look deeper, there's the atomic dimensions. Everything is atomic, because the word atom come again from Greek. Tome in Greek means to cut, and atom means it cannot be cut. So the uncuttable was the elementary particles, but now we know they're not so elementary. We now know that below the elementary particles, there are subquantum particles that I have a great interest in. My colleague, Professor Stoyan Sarg of York University, we have a team now studying subquantum particles, subquantum energy, what we call, and he calls the cosmic crystalline lattice. And he's just publishing his 3rd book this week, actually. And next time we are on the show, I hope to have a copy of his new book on subquantum dynamics and subquantum physics. But we'll get into that a little later. Yes, Sandra. Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about the analog, is the universe analog versus digital. So are you saying it's digital, or is it both? And can you describe what the digital is in comparison to the analog?
Well, you see, it's how we'll, everything is about perspective, isn't it? And how we look at things. When we look at this table, it's convenient to regard it as smooth. When we look at water or a fluid, it's convenient. It's a convenient illusion, or a convenient truth, a local truth, let's say. But we know there is a more global truth. We don't need to know the atoms in the water to drink it.
Correct. So when you say digital, are you talking about binary codes and things like that? Is that what digital means? Or are we talking
I can give you
sacred geometry?
An answer based on the discussion that we've had. The main thing here between the two concepts, the analog and the digital, is to me linear versus nonlinear. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And this is a layman's interpretation. So linear means that for me to get from point A to point C, I have to go through B, right? So it's a long way, right? It takes effort and it takes time, right? It takes linear time. If I'm in the digital state, I can quantum leap from point A to point C, I can instantly be
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Does that make any sense, Jon?
Yeah, it brings up the particle or the wave.
Okay.
The wave is continuous. The particle is separate. But when you look at the particle more closely, see, when you look more closely, it changes back and forward. You look at the particle, you realize it's not a particle. It's maybe a vortex. It looks like, if you look from space down on the ocean, it looks like, or a tornado, it looks like a particle. But when you're right down there, it's actually a vortex.
So then the wave would be the analog and the particle would be the digital.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Okay.
Now, when we talk about things like time, another philosophical question, is time digital or analog? Does time move smoothly, or is it in Planck steps? Is there a chronon, the particle of time, the so-called chronon? Is the time particle? Some people believe that yes, what we perceive as a continuity, like a movie, on a movie screen, but there's frame after frame after frame, but the human eye cannot see the gap between the frames. But in all likelihood, this is the way reality is, frame by frame by frame. Yeah,
Okay,
and that
thank
I
you.
would call digital versus analog. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Gaddy brought up a good point about linearity and non-linearity. In linearity, all you get is averages. And when you deal with statistics, all you get are averages. So statistics tells us a lot about populations of thousands or millions of people, because all the averages cancel out. Either you often to zero, if it's total randomness, white noise, it cancels out to zero. The energies oppose each other and come to zero. But when you have nonlinearity and asymmetry, then you get you're able to tap into the 0-point energy, for example, that we're going to talk about later. How do you capture this 0-point energy for running cities and running our vehicles, or for healing, or for anti-gravity or other phenomena? So we'll talk about that in more detail. But one question you asked me, Sandra, earlier was about electrical stimulation. I have a particular interest in electrotherapy and magnetic therapies. And I've had many inventions and patents related to electrical stimulation and magnetic stimulation of the human body. And we know throughout history that electricity and magnetism have had therapeutic benefits. In fact, way back in 3,000 more years ago, they used the electric fish. There are electric eel, electric fish, and they generate 700 to 1,000 volt pulses. So they used them in electrotherapy back in the Mediterranean in Greek and Roman times. And funnily enough, they used it for hemorrhoids. So they would sit on the electric eel and get zapped. And it helped the pain and the inflammation, because the electrical energy, very powerful. These animals are incredible evolutionary specimens to have evolved with this 1,000-volt pulses at biological frequencies. Incredible. So however,
can we say, Dr. Stewart, then why did the eels have these electric pulses? Because they chose to?
all animals emit electrical pulses.
Okay.
We do.
All beings.
All beings, yeah, all beings.
Of creation.
But clearly they did in a way that was, I guess, extraordinary.
Well, the animals, the eels and others, paralyze their prey. So they render them incapable of running, which they paralyze them with the electrical impulses. And actually later in the 70s, there was a famous pain gate theory, Wall and Melzack, the scientists, who would put electrical pulses on a nerve up here, and it would block pain coming up. It's called the pain gate theory. So electrical impulses have been used for a long time. And I want to tell you a bit about, I was discovered on page 206 of this book, The Field, very interestingly, about high-frequency electrostatic generators. So when you get your book, and I ask you all, as you're going to follow this course, please buy your own copy of this book. This is the most important book you'll ever buy
Can I interrupt you for a second? A great deal here on Amazon. He, do you want to show it for a second?
Absolutely, and I want to let people know they can buy this book on the thatchannel.com site as well.
Oh, you
$12.97 and free shipping, over $25.
Well, $25?
No, it's $13.
Wow!
Whoa.
That's an incredible value.
It may be a paperback.
Paperback, yeah, and then you can follow this course. All of us can follow the course together because I have my homework to do, and I expect you all to do your homework.
But they can get it if they go to the thatchannel.com website and click on the cool stuff menu item. They can order the book right now.
Oh, good.
But open up a new tab in your browser because you don't want to go away from this show right now.
Anyway, on page 206, they talk about high-frequency electrostatic generators. And I invented such a device over 20 years ago. And it's for enhancing the pineal gland. It has rejuvenating effects, as you'll read in page 206. Rejuvenating effects on DNA, on all tissue. And I have a patent back 20 years ago for growing hair on bald heads using electrostatic pulses. So not only am I the president of the company who makes this, I'm also a client. So I apologize for my long hair. I've been overdosing on electrostatic pulses. I'm going to have a haircut tomorrow, so next time you see me, I'll have a haircut. This is called electrotrichogenesis. Tricho in Greek means hair. So electrotricho means you grow hair using electrical stimulation. So that's a little aside there. So this book is mostly about the field. And what is the field? The field is the equivalent of what the ether was. And then the ether went into disfavor. But yet Einstein at first felt there was no ether. But later on, he said, if reality is inconceivable without the ether. So, I think we now have to agree that there is a fabric of reality, a matrix of reality. And when you read the Professor Sarg's books, and I'll tell you another good book is by, easier to read, Paul Laviolette. Yeah, Paul Laviolette. He has two great books. One is called Subquantum Kinetics, which I've been reading also, and the other is Anti-Gravity and the Grid. Both of them will explain to you the nature of the subquantum level. And I said to you, atoms are around 10 to the minus 9, 1 nanometer, 10 to the minus 9, but when you go down to 10 to the minus 20, which is very small, that's where this cosmic matrix, this crystalline matrix exists. And it's a crystal of incredible density and energy, and it vibrates in almost an infinite number of frequencies. And when all those frequencies get together, that's what's creating reality. That's our belief now, that all of those frequencies in this crystal are vibrating and emanating, because this is all within us. This is the fundamental nature of who we are. Down at a deeper level, we are all manifestations of this cosmic crystalline lattice. You might want to know, well, is there anything below 10 to the minus 20? Yeah, the bottom level, the ground level, is 10 to the minus 35 meters, the Planck level. It's not, we don't know anything or much about that level, but we do know that up at 10 to the minus 20 is the area that we're going to be focusing on in the field that affects us. So this is beyond quantum, although we will talk about quantum phenomena such as non-locality. So non-locality is where you have two quantum particles, such as photons, going in opposite direction, but they have come from the same source. So they are quantumly connected, they are entangled, but they go into opposite parts of the universe. They are still connected instantaneously. When you change one, the polarization of one, the other one has to go the other way because they are fermions. They cannot occupy the same state. So when you change one, instantly, obviously through the subquantum field, there's a connection, an interconnectedness. So we are quantum devices. We are quantum manifestations of of this subquantum field. So that could explain telepathy. How come brains and minds and intelligences seem to have connection? And telepathy has now been very convincingly proven. You'll find about it in the book. You have something now, Gary?
Yeah, I wanted to relay something to you telepathically, but this is a really excellent time to take a station break.
My name is Jon Stewart, president of Biophysica, Inc., and a biomedical engineer. We make the world's most advanced colloidal generators for domestic and industrial quantities of mineralized waters. Many bottling plants worldwide use our generators to make colloidal silver, the world's most life-saving antimicrobial supplement, as well as colloidal zinc, gold, magnesium, copper, iron, etc. Biophysica advanced generators produce the smallest nanomolecules to ensure potency against the smallest, most vicious viruses. A Biophysica colloidal generator will give your family the best quality colloidal silver for many years, quickly, cheaply, and easily. Contact us at biophysica.com or call us at 416-636-5804. Okay, we've just talked about electrical stimulation and how high-frequency electrostatic pulses have a penetrating and enhancing and rejuvenating effect on cells. And frequency is important. And I brought with me a range of frequencies, all from 0 hertz. Hertz is the name of frequency. 0 hertz is DC, all the way up to beyond the gamma rays, up to 10 to the power 20 hertz, which covers all of the microwave, radio, light, etc. So this is something we'll have ready for next time in the form of a JPEG, and it's a very useful document. But we're going to move on from electrical stimulation to magnetic fields, which are equally important. Magnetic fields have the property that when they interact with matter and tissues, they give rise to microvolts of voltage. Voltage is the movement of charge, electrical and electron flow. So when you have electrons flowing, they bring with them all of the atoms of the body, like calcium, magnesium, zinc, potassium, chlorine, all of those essential minerals that are the foundation of life. But the foundation of life is the electron. It's the ultimate fuel of life, and it fuels all of our actions. Those molecules and atoms cannot move without the power of electrons. And electrons themselves are carried around the body by ATP, adenosine triphosphate, from the interior of the cells, from the mitochondria, which are the energy factors. But back to magnetic fields. Magnetic fields can penetrate, and I have a magnetic field device here that I invented many years ago. I call it the neodyme because it uses neodymium magnets, the most powerful available. So this is physically vibrating. I can feel it. It's also emanating a magnetic field, quite a powerful one, at a chosen biologically appropriate frequency. And I also invented this magnetic field detector that I can put, if I put it over some magnetic source, these aren't producing a minute, but this one is, even out to beyond 1 foot, to the penetrating effect of magnetic fields. So I can put this through my body and it will penetrate all the organs of my body and benefit my organs if they need magnetic field. They will take, the DNA takes what it needs, and you'll read about it in Cox's book, Chapter 9, which I was listening to. DNA takes what it needs and expels what it doesn't need. So there's nothing ever toxic about these electrical and magnetic fields. So this will penetrate down to deeper organs, the brain, for example, and have an anti-inflammatory effect. So it can help heal some of the inflammations that are deep into deep organs like the pancreas, pancreatitis, cystitis for the bladder, gut inflammations, diverticulitis, and one terrible condition, the bleeding into the pelvis. What's it?
Colitis?
Not colitis, no, from the uterus.
Endometriosis? Yes.
Anyway, any of these inflammatory conditions could be helped by endometriosis. Thanks, yeah, endometriosis. Yeah. Now, this energy has been used for decades, and instruments have been built to provide this kind of energy for hip fractures to accelerate hip repair. Or originally, it was invented to help ununited bone fractures. If someone had a fracture, Colles fracture here of the radius and the ulna, and it wouldn't heal properly, this would help accelerate the healing by putting in electrical impulses that stimulated the growth. Because when you have an injury, there's a current of injury, it's called. When you cut the limb of the salamander, it grows a new limb, and measurable electrical impulses are there. Yes, Anne-Marie?
So would I be able to use that that equipment on my hip to cut down on the pain from inflammation? Because I have osteoarthritis.
Well, magnetic fields have been shown to alleviate the symptoms of many painful inflammatory diseases. I can't say there's no cure, right? We cannot use the C word.
No. But it could help eliminate.
But it can alleviate a lot of the symptoms. And interestingly, before I forget, some of the very early studies on magnetic fields were done in Hungary on MS, published results, how MS patients benefit. Guiling-Bordax, Guyling-Bordax was a Hungarian group team who did very early work on MS using magnetic field pulses of the correct frequencies.
So to Anne-Marie's point, if it can help with the anti-inflammatory,
yes,
as an anti-inflammatory, can it actually take the place of Tylenol or drugs?
It can. It's one more contributory alleviative factor.
I want to offer something.
I wouldn't want to say it would eliminate the need for drugs.
Is it something that you would recommend, or that we could try first before
If it was my hip, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd be walking around with this.
Okay.
I wanted to add something. A device that you recently used was the TENS device.
TENS is back to electrical stimulation for pain. That wouldn't be so appropriate for a hip.
No, it wouldn't?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Is it possible, Dr. Stewart, if Anne-Marie, because you have pain, right, Anne-Marie? Is it possible she could try that for the next 2 weeks and maybe come back in 2 weeks and report on that?
Wonderful idea, yes.
Okay, so let's do that. So you have to come back in 2 weeks and report back.
Yeah. And remember, too, that this is in the area of integrative, alternative, complementary medicine. What works for one may not work for others. And that's question number 2. A lot depends on your intention and your state of mind, your consciousness, and how you're healing, how you absorb healing energy, and to the extent to which your body is healing itself. So we don't know if this is telling your body to heal itself, or if there's a direct cause-effect relationship.
You have to be open to it.
Yeah.
Your mental state is the most important factor.
But then you are reaching to the placebo effect, which is exactly that. right?
Well, see, again,
if I have the
we
intention
have
of
a new, and Cox talks about this in chapter 9. The placebo effect is getting stronger and stronger because as the universe, as time is accelerating and the universe is expanding and becoming more complex, the drug companies are now finding, and Wilcock tells us, that a lot of their drugs aren't working because the placebo effect is working more strongly.
Yes.
So it's
Would you not say that the placebo effect is our body's ability to heal itself?
Yeah, it's not a placebo effect, really, because animals respond, newborn babies respond, people on anesthesia respond, and it's not a placebo effect.
I have a question, however. Can you refer to some FDA approval or blinded, whatever, clinical trials that would have been done to use this? And then, if it has been approved and proven to be effective, is it any clinic or is it anywhere that it's used as standard treatment or part of the standard treatment in by Mayo clinics, let's say, or some other clinic?
When you, a good example that you mentioned, the Mayo Clinic, that's one of the clinics in Columbia University that all of them have tried this new transcranial magnetic stimulation for depression, for example. And they now have videos on YouTube that's showing that they're getting great results using magnetic pulses. So that has gone through these preliminary studies and been shown to be effective quite well. So all of these have gone through all of these studies. Yeah. Gertie, have I answered the question? I can't hear it fully.
You have answered the question, although I'm on your page. You can show the page now. If you like, and Jon can speak a little bit about this device and the research. Can you see the page there?
Oh yeah, that's transcranial magnetic stimulation on my website, biophysica.com, and how the magnetic pulses go in through either a single coil or a figure-of-8 coil deep into the brain. And likewise, with that machine, I can hold this about 2 feet away, and you can see the pulses coming from the machine.
Yeah, that I am very aware.
So I want to answer you. I want to help with the answer.
Also in
there is it Stanford University research that went into this technology? You have a video on your website.
There's a video, I believe it's Columbia University, somewhere like that.
That shows what?
They show, they have a video of their work there and the benefits that people are getting.
Yes, I know. I did some work in, for instance, it's used in Parkinson.
Parkinson's.
Yes, the deep.
Funny you should bring that up.
Yes.
And I love this. I love the non-linearity of this.
Yeah.
Because when you bring up something, it's for a higher purpose.
Yeah.
The Akashic fields are fully present here and now. And we should be open to non-linearity.
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah. No, my question was specific for the bone fractures and this external machine, not the deep brain stimulation.
We'll come back to that.
Which I know that works.
But let's follow the non-linearity for a moment.
Okay.
The Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, unfortunately Margaret Thatcher just died at the tender age of 80, so she should have lived much longer. Dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS. Number one, many think that it's caused by viruses that are affecting certain cells in the brain. Number two, there is a helmet called the Alzheimer's helmet, the dementia helmet, where far infrared light has been shown by studies in England, and this has been thoroughly proven. It's not like very hypothetical. This is real science. And again, it's if you go onto my website, I have a page about Alzheimer. One of my pages, biophysica.com, Alzheimer's.html, is about far infrared energy helping the symptoms of Alzheimer's and dementia. But back to your question about magnetic fields. help me answer a question.
I'm sorry. I actually went. I went to a page that's not related to the magnetic field. It's related to the shock therapy thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just because I'm reasonably well versed in this, and this is from your website, and this is a page from Mayo Clinic, right?
Oh.
And says magnetic stimulation therapy effective for treatment-resistant depression, can beat depression when therapy has not worked, according to blah blah blah. So your TMS device is very much based on proven technology from tested at the Mayo Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Can you invent an Alzheimer's helmet?
Pardon?
Can you invent an Alzheimer's helmet, Dr. Stewart?
Yes, of course I can.
He has already.
Ah, okay. Can I borrow?
Well, you're too young.
It's not for me. It's not for me. It's for my mother. Can
John,
I borrow that?
You had a request recently about this, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the infrared energy has to be in a certain band of the infrared. The intermediate is 1027 nanometers, so it's just over 1 micron in wavelength. You know that red light is around 600 nanometers. Green light is 550 nanometers. Blue light is 400. So as we go down at 500 green, we go down to yellow, and we're going to red is 600. We go down to 800, which is infrared, and down to 1,000, which is into the intermediate deep far infrared. That is the red, the infrared that they have found in England, and you can link onto and their work. I have a link to their work in England. That is the wavelength. Now, they don't talk about whether they pulse the light. I believe in pulsing, because that adds an extra dimension of therapeutic effectiveness. So I pulse my biophotons at certain chosen frequencies related to rife and radionic frequencies that I know are, and homeopathic frequencies that I know are most beneficial.
So why isn't the health community starting to use this? Has it been proven effective?
Has it been effective?
Has been proven effective, this Alzheimer's helmet. And why aren't people using it? Why aren't we hearing more about this? Because Alzheimer's is on the rise. So why are we not hearing more about that? Do you know?
It's there on the internet.
Well, why are they offering it in the hospitals, though?
Well, maybe it's part of the system. Things do not get even well validated discoveries are not easily accepted because it changes the status quo. And we humans don't like to change the status quo. It's human nature. Maybe I don't want to say it's our egos, but it's part of our functioning that we abhor change. Just like nature abhors a vacuum, we abhor change. So it's difficult to get new modalities accepted.
So maybe we can start to change that from a consciousness perspective as well.
Part of why we're here on this program is to help the wave, to push the wave of understanding and knowledge and wisdom and acceptance. And to bring a book like this to the awareness of the general public. And as I said in my last interview, to high school people. Kids in high school should be reading. I should have read this book when I was 12, 13, 14, and they should be reading. They're old enough and mature enough at 12, 13, 14 to be reading books and understanding the nature of the cosmos. And I think we do a great disservice to young people to not feed them with this information about the truth, instead of giving them distortions of the truth and illusions of the truth and limitations of the truth.
I can throw something in here if you want to hear a sad truth about the state of medicine from a novice non-doctor like me. It seems in this day and age, certain truths about reality have emerged, that certain systems that we have, including the medical system, are self-serving, closed, self-referencing systems. For example, this is a known thing. It's again from the internet. Most, if all cancer deaths happen from the treatment, not from the disease. This is not broadcast on, you don't hear it on mainstream media, but I think innovation is suppressed, has been suppressed for a long time, and in any field, anything that threatens the status quo is for now being suppressed, and that is a well-known fact today. So.
Well, there's a famous quote: great beings encounter violent opposition from small minds. And also, it's difficult to expand our consciousness for all of us. I know myself, if I look back 20, 30 years, I had a limited understanding and acceptance of a lot of these ideas. And this is why a book like this will help us all. There are things in this book, even now, I cannot accept. I don't believe. So you don't have to believe it, but it works. It's like gravity. You don't have to believe in it, or you don't have to know how it works, but it still works. Yeah. So let's see, is there anything in wrapping up, because it won't be long now. Oh yeah, one of the things that raises its ugly head in all of this scientific work is the second law of thermodynamics. The laws of thermodynamics tell us that water cannot flow uphill. Balls cannot roll uphill. Heat cannot travel from cold to hot, but always travels from hot to cold. And because that's the law of thermodynamics. Heat always, and it's about entropy and disorder. And if you go on to Wikipedia, and I have a printout from Wikipedia, and Google the laws of thermodynamics, let me read to you the second law of thermodynamics. In an isolated system, if not in a state of thermodynamic equilibrium, spontaneously evolves towards equilibrium. Thermodynamic equilibrium has the greatest entropy among the states accessible to the system. Therefore, perpetual motion machines are thus impossible. But we know that perpetual motion machines have been invented. They've been suppressed, and many of the inventors have been assassinated because they have violated the law of the second law of thermodynamics. However, when the laws of thermodynamics describe systems in balance, only when you go out of balance can you then can violate the laws of thermodynamics. You then have what's not a closed system anymore. Certainly in a closed system, all the energy is contained and those laws apply. But when you have an external system such as the field, we now know that there are no closed systems in reality. They're all open to the field. They're all receiving and feeding, being fed by the field, and we're feeding the field. So the laws of thermodynamics really are an illusion, a convenient illusion that works in classical physics and in little local experiments. But when you have experiments that bring about interaction with these fields, then the laws of thermodynamics do not apply. And we have to liberate our thinking from those kinds of laws of impossibility and think in terms of possibility, infinite possibility. And as you read this book, and I'm looking forward to forcing myself to do the homework, which I might not otherwise do. So let's force ourselves to read this chapter by chapter. There are 20 chapters, so 20 sessions. And we'll all read it together, and as each 2-week event, we'll go over the chapter, and we'll also indulge ourselves in nonlinearities.
So, looking at the first chapter here, it's the Baxter Effect, free energy, and the consequences.
We'll go into the Baxter Effect next time, and how a plant was able to detect the intention of the experimenter. The experimenter was going to burn a leaf or cut a leaf, and the plant was hooked up to a polygraph by Dr. Baxter, who had worked for the CIA in polygraphy, in lie detection. So he was one of the world's experts on picking up electrical information from biological specimens. So he saw this violent change in the electrical activity of the plant just because of the intention that he and others had. And then he found that plants were communicating with each other. The experience of one plant affected another. And you'll also read about how the heartbeat, the heart experiments between humans in one room and another. You stimulate one person, it shows up in the heartbeat or the EEG of another person in a distant room.
So are you saying that, so if you go to cut the plant was actually experiencing fear?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, if you believed that you were actually cutting the plant for the benefit of the plant and you actually had a feeling of love, would that plant experience the love?
Yeah.
So it's the intention of the person performing the act. It's not the act itself.
I think that and I agree with Lynne Mctaggart, intention, the most important things of the universe, intention, intention, intention. Yeah, intention, intention, intention.
So it's not necessarily the act of the actual cutting of the plant.
No.
It's the intention behind it.
It's not the act that defines good or not good. It's the intention. Like if there's evil, which I believe there is, I think it's defined by the intention. It's not the act itself.
So when you go to cut something, because I know if I cut myself, I already know I'm going to feel pain, right? Because we've all cut ourselves and we've all felt pain. So I know the idea that if I'm going to go cut a plant, I'm feeling that I'm going back to that memory. So I'm assuming. So I'm through that fear. That fear is being transmitted to the plant. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because you're recreating an experience.
Okay.
And we know that recreating experiences is a very powerful therapeutic approach, procedure for people who are suffering mental disorders. They can re-experience their experience in a new, more benign way than they did in childhood. We're very close to finishing now, so we have one more minute. So please look at my website. What did you have to say, Ben?
I wanted to say that that experiment has affected us, has affected humanity in a huge way. Dr. Baxter actually made a true conscious connection with the plant, and it's a two-way. There was two-way communications. The plant experienced absolute terror. The plant thought it was going to be burnt, and it experienced terror, and it showed it on the polygraph. Subsequently, Dr. Baxter and the plant have developed a phenomenal relationship. The plant is capable of communicating with every other being in the universe. Plants, animals, human beings read them and send back messages to Dr. Baxter.
Okay, but to that point though, Gaddy, if you are sending love and then you go to burn that plant, if you feel love, that plant is not going to respond to.
And you know, that was part of the experiment,
okay.
And you're absolutely right, and we will talk about it next time.
Okay, perfect.
So please, all of you, buy the book through that channel and go onto my website, biophysica.com, and get yourselves a colloidal generator. My name is Jon Stewart, president of Biophysica, Inc., and a biomedical engineer. We make the world's most advanced colloidal generators for domestic and industrial quantities of mineralized waters. Many bottling plants worldwide use our generators to make colloidal silver, the world's most life-saving antimicrobial supplement, as well as colloidal zinc, gold, magnesium, copper, iron, etc. Biophysica advanced generators produce the smallest nanomolecules to ensure potency against the smallest, most vicious viruses. A Biophysica colloidal generator will give your family the best quality colloidal silver for many years, quickly, cheaply, and easily. Contact us at biophysica.com or call us at 416-636-5804.